Am I the asshole for refusing to give my boyfriend my PIN number after he took my credit card without consent? I, female 24, have been seeing my boyfriend Martin, male 30, for 8 months. He's super funny and sweet, and he's currently out of a job for health reasons, but actively looking for a new job. 2 days ago, we spent the night together, and he went to the store early in the morning to buy some groceries. What I didn't know is that he took my credit card to shop with it. I got woken up by him calling, asking me to give him my credit card PIN number. I asked why, and he said he went grocery shopping with the card and forgot to ask me to give him the PIN before he left. I got mad and felt violated. I said sorry, but I gave no permission for him to go out and shop using my credit card. He sounded confused and said he was just trying to buy us breakfast and it was only $20. I said sorry, but refused to give him the PIN number. He was upset and asked why, and I told him because he didn't consider getting my permission to take my card and use it. He said, all right, then guess no breakfast for us, then hung up. I called and called but got no response. He returned and gave me the card and then went on to complain. I said I understood, but it's all about consent. He left after this and hasn't returned my calls. Am I the asshole for not waking my boyfriend, which made him late to his first day at a new job? I, 28 female, have lived with my boyfriend, 30 male, for 3 years now. When I first stayed the night and he overslept, I woke him up. He woke up in a bad mood and after a big fight made it absolutely clear that I should not wake him up even if I knew he'd be late to a meeting with the Pope, his words. After I calmed down, I wrote a contract that said I would never wake him up under any circumstances short of an emergency as long as he never blames me for oversleeping. He laughed and then signed it. Fast forward to yesterday, he started a new job and celebrated the night before with some guys online but had to wake up at 7 a.m. I woke up at 5 a.m. like usual, did my stuff, and by that time it was 7 a.m. and he didn't wake up. I left the house at 8:15 and he was still asleep. When I got back, he was there and very angry and started shouting and blaming me for being late. He said I should have woke him up when I noticed he overslept. I stayed silent until he stopped shouting, then showed him the paper that he signed. I said I will never wake him up and he can set an alarm like an adult.
I found out that I wasn't my husband's first choice. My husband, 29, and I, 26, met online 3 years ago and we got married last May. We have had a great relationship and our wedding day was the happiest day in my life. My husband is so good to me and he makes me feel so loved and appreciated. And I love him so much. But everything changed last Monday. I was on my sister-in-law's baby shower and when they didn't know I was listening, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and sister-in-law's best friend were in the kitchen talking about my husband and I. The friend said she liked me a lot, and my sister-in-law said she was happy he let Maddie go and settled with me, and that she never thought this would happen. I pretended that I didn't hear them, but I knew Maddie to be a close friend of my husband from college. He never mentioned that they were in a relationship. All I knew is that she moved to live in another city after graduation and that she couldn't attend our wedding. So since Monday, I have been pondering. I'm happy with him, but I wanted to know why he never mentioned anything about Maddie. So today, I did what any sensible wife would do, and I waited for him to go to work and started snooping around on his iPad. He doesn't know I know his code. I didn't even need to look for long. There it was. Tens, maybe hundreds of texts between them over a period of years. Before he met me and even after. From what I understood, he has asked her out many times and she has refused. Him telling her he would never love anyone like her and she stopped him with a wink emoji that says, I won't have you, but please do keep trying. One of Maddie's texts, right before we got married, was about how she knew she would eventually end up with him. My husband texts back that he was getting married soon and that he was happy. She answered, you can always get a divorce. But my husband sent a cry laughing and winky emojis. She then texted, if you chose between the two of us, who would you choose? He answered, you only want me when I'm not available. She answered, shut up. I know you still love me. He didn't answer. The last exchange between them was 3 weeks ago. She told him that she's moving back home and that she missed him and wondered if they could meet. He said, of course he wanted to meet. She asked him, wouldn't your wife mind? Winky face. He answered, why should she? If she knew what I want to do to you, she should be worried actually. He, stop teasing, it won't work. I'm not teasing. That poor woman won't stand a chance. I called you, why didn't you pick up? We're having dinner, I will call you tomorrow. So that's all I could find. I haven't talked to him yet because I don't know how to approach the subject. I think there's definitely something between them. But I can't ask him because he would know that I went through his texts. I'm very hurt. I thought thought he loved me and that he was happy with me. I want to cry. I don't know what my next step should be. One moment I want to pretend I had no idea and wait for him to leave me. The next I want to run away and never come back. My wife is considering divorcing me after finding out the real reason we started dating. I love my wife very much and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. However, our relationship started in what you can call a non-traditional way. First, some background information. My 34 male cousin, 35 male, and I have always had a friendly rivalry. Ever since we were children, we were always trying to one-up one another, and when it got to high school, it really amped up. If I bought a jacket, he would go out and buy a nicer jacket. If he bought the newest gaming system, I would purposely steal his games, even though I didn't own a Super Nintendo yet. Whenever I dated a girl or showed interest in a girl, he would swoop in and take her from me. It got so bad that we actually had a couple of physical altercations over it. Things came to a head when, long story short, he slept with my long-term crush. Let's call her Stacy. I vowed to get revenge. I noticed him talking to a girl from my class. Let's call her Jane. Being all flirty towards her, spending a lot of time with her, and so on. I didn't waste any time. I asked her out as soon as I could, and she said yes. Turns out she had a crush on me for a while, even though I did not find her remotely attractive. The date actually went really well. Turns out we shared a lot of the same interests. I kept dating her to rub it into my cousin because I noticed he was still talking to her between classes. Over time, I came to love Jane's personality and forgot the fact that I wasn't physically attracted to her. We dated all throughout university and we got married 5 years ago. I can't picture life without her. Now that COVID-19 restrictions have loosened up, we had Steven over for dinner. To my great surprise, Steven is currently dating Stacy, and it turns out they reconnected when they were both hired to the same company this summer. We were reminiscing about old times, and our rivalry came up. We had all been drinking at that point, and I mentioned that in high school Steven slept with Stacy because he knew that I had liked her. I then added, but the rivalry ended up working out for me. I asked Jane out as revenge because I knew you had a crush on her, and then we're married. I definitely should not have said this, as several people got upset when I revealed this information. Stacy was shocked that Steven had treated her like a prize and objectified her. Steven revealed that he had never had a crush on Jane. They were just in the same math class and Jane was helping him with his schoolwork. He scoffed that Jane wasn't a prize after all, and I felt humiliated. I wasn't aware. I thought Jane was upstairs putting our daughters to sleep. She had been standing in the hallway behind me, listening into our whole conversation. I could see the horror in Stacy's face and realized that my wife was standing behind me, sobbing. Jane has always been very sensitive about not being one of the hot girls, and I had been the first boy to ever ask her out on a date. I started trying to apologize and explain that I love Jane very much now. I fell in love with her wonderful personality, her kindness, her intelligence, and so on. She didn't even listen to any of my heartfelt compliments and instead asked Steven and I to leave the house. Now Stacy and Steven have broken up, and he is blaming me. But even worse, my wife threatening to divorce me over this whole thing. She says our entire relationship was based on a lie, and she will never be able to look at me or our relationship in the same way. How can I convince her that my feelings for her might not have started out that way, but are very real now? I love this woman, and I love our marriage and the life we have built together. We have 2 young daughters, 3 and 1, and I don't want them to grow up in a broken home. What can I do to fix this?
My family is blaming me for a fight after my half-brother destroyed pictures of my mum. Throw away so I don't cause any more damage than I've already done. So a bit of backstory. I, 16 male, recently moved in with my dad, 47 male, after my mum died. Dad's never really been in my life and he and my mum were never married. He has a wife, S, 48 female, and 2 other kids, A, 14 female, and M, 18 male. So when I ended up moving in with my dad, it obviously caused a lot of issues with the rest of the family. Nobody wanted me there and basically gave me the cold shoulder. S, M, and A tend to talk with each other in French because they know I can't understand them, and my dad has tried to force an English-only rule in the house with little luck. For the first month, M just ignored me completely, even though he and I were forced to share a room since the house didn't have any space. I tried to be nice, but I just lost my mum and it hurts, and it's been so much change so quickly. 2 days ago though, I found postcards and pictures and letters from my mum ripped into a bunch of pieces and scattered all across my bed. I kept them in a box under my bed, and M had been the only one in the house with me at the time, so I know he did it. I started yelling at him and we ended up verbally fighting right as S and A got back home. I can't remember what M said anymore because I was so mad that I wasn't thinking straight, but I remember hitting him. We both exchanged a couple of punches and I accidentally elbowed A in the nose while she and S were trying to separate us, so she was bleeding too. When my dad got home, we were all still yelling and S was trying to throw me out of the house. I couldn't stop crying because I just had my only actual photos of my mum ruined and I don't know if we can fix them. My dad tried to settle everyone down but didn't end up punishing M because there's no actual proof he did it. I got in trouble for throwing the first punch and S is still trying to convince my dad to send me somewhere else. Both A and M kept telling them that I ruined their family by coming here, but I didn't really have a choice. I know I shouldn't have hit M, but I was so mad and didn't think. I know I shouldn't have escalated anything, but am I really the one at fault here? I don't know how I'm supposed to live with M anymore.
My brother saw a ghost as a kid. 2 decades later, I realized what he actually saw. I was about 7 years old, my brother was about 10. It was well past our bedtime when our mom woke up off the couch to put us to bed. Our dad worked construction out of town back then, so it was often just us three at home for weeks at a time. Up the stairs and to the immediate right was our parents' bedroom. Going left put you in the middle of a hallway. Taking another left down the hallway led to my brother's room. The opposite end was my room, which was also across the hall from our upstairs bathroom. At either end of the hallway are window doors we always kept locked and rarely used. The door on my end led to a balcony overlooking our front yard, and the door on my brother's end opened up to our back porch. My brother and mom both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper and they just couldn't help flushing with the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to the room and came back towards the bathroom. I'm gonna try to pee before I go to bed. These past few nights I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. I keep seeing a man wearing stripes at the end of the hallway. I don't know if my mom wrote it off as my brother telling ghost stories to try to scare me or if she was already half asleep and didn't catch it, but she didn't react at all to my brother's confession. I, on the other hand, was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I were having a conversation in the car about a dog we had for a very short time when I was little. We were sharing stories about Max's tendencies toward destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mom blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open the big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about and she looked equally surprised as if she just revealed something by accident. "Oh, that's right, I never told you because you were too young at the time. One night, I woke up hearing noises outside my window and when I looked, I saw a man staring into my bedroom." She went on to describe how turning on the lights caused him to take off running and how she grabbed my dad's pistol before calling the cops. I can't remember all the details I gave them when they showed up. Tall, white male, wearing a striped shirt and jeans, short dark hair, something like that. They said it matched the description of a man they were looking for in that area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until a few years ago in my mid-20s that I pieced together that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights chasing our home.
I fired a bridesmaid and now I feel awful. One of my oldest friends and I have been drifting apart over the past 3 to 4 years. She's been a bit weird, to put it nicely. When my fiancée and I got engaged, she texted me and started asking me about what she was wearing as a bridesmaid, etc. The thing is, I hadn't planned on asking her, but I tend to be too nice and a bit of a pushover, so I let her join the wedding party. Yes, I realized this was my initial mess up. So, over the past year, she has become almost unbearable. She has stopped working and refuses to work at all anymore. She has self-diagnosed herself with PTSD, allegedly from being tickled too much as a child. Yeah, autism and narcolepsy, along with a slew of other things. The crazy thing is, she doesn't even have any of these things. No doctor has confirmed it, and she's switched therapists a couple of times, trying to find someone who would. She's been trying to get disability for these alleged ailments so that she never has to work again. In the meantime, she has been mooching off of her friends and family. She gets people to buy her all sorts of frivolous things. Books, lingerie, vape supplies, art supplies, a $500 treadmill. The list goes on. I've made so many excuses for her because of our history together. I could probably ignore all that craziness if she hadn't been causing wedding drama too. The dresses I selected for the bridesmaid cost $30, not $130. $30. I understand she doesn't have money due to being unemployed, but that's her choice. She has had 2 years to save for this dress. I've been gently reminding her to buy her dress over the past couple of months, since our wedding is coming up soon, but she's never got money. Honestly, I feel like if she can get someone to buy her a $500 treadmill and other expensive things, she should be able to find a way to get a $30 dress. Not to mention, she owns her own house, lots of named brand clothes, electronics, and a new Mercedes. She keeps dropping hints to the rest of the wedding party, hoping someone will pay for her. She's making everyone uncomfortable and angry. And on top of that, she's been messaging my maid of honor, who's been planning my bachelorette party and bossing her around, telling her what is and isn't allowed at the party, etc. It's not her party. So yesterday, I had finally had enough. I told her, as politely as I could, that she was demoted. I tried to take most of the blame and told her it was based on my own anxieties and the fact that I felt guilty about adding to her stress and financial burden. Suddenly, she could magically pay for everything and wanted to buy a dress. I told her I was sorry, but I made the decision and left it at that. She's been bombarding me with texts and calls ever since, guilt-tripping me and gaslighting me relentlessly. My fiancé, the rest of the wedding party, and my family all encouraged me and thought I made the right choice. If everyone agrees that it was the right thing, then why do I feel so awful? I don't want to let her back in, but I feel terrible. As outside observers, what do you guys think? My 23 female love for my boyfriend 27 male blinded me, and now I'm realizing I may have been a side piece the whole time. It sounds incredibly stupid, I know. The entirety of the story is a bit convoluted, so please bear with me. I am a pretty late bloomer and have virtually no dating experience. I attribute it mostly to how I was raised. The circumstances surrounding how we got together seemed to align almost perfectly, and I wasn't looking for a relationship at the time. But he showed genuine interest in me right away, and everything seemed to be going well. He has never put me down, never made me feel self-conscious, and always made sure I felt safe and comfortable. And his focus would be 100% on me whenever we were together. He was by no means perfect, however. At times, he would be distant because of his work, and it was never realistic from the beginning for us to see each other on his work days. Some days it was like radio silence, and I would point that out to him. His immediate response would always be to apologize, but then after a while, it would go back to the same silence. We have been together 9 months now, but throughout the 9 months I began to notice little things here and there when I would come over to his house. A female's name strewn about on his streaming platforms, some women's clothing in a closet. At one point I swear I saw a picture of someone in his wallet hidden behind his ID. I was a coward and I should have brought up this kind of stuff right away. Over time he opened up about his past relationship and about other aspects of his life, but at times I felt compelled to snoop around because I wanted answers and I am admittedly insecure. I know this is bad on my part. He told me his parents and sister used to live with him temporarily before they moved to a different state, which was true, so this could explain some of the things I noticed around his house. One night he really opened up to me about his ex. He told me she would freak out if she didn't get a reply in a few minutes. She would gaslight him, do things purposely to hurt him, send inappropriate pictures of herself to other people, the whole 9 yards. He told me it took him a lot to admit those things to me because no man wants to admit he was in a toxic relationship, and he actually broke down crying. I felt compelled to believe him at the time and still feel so to an extent. But I snooped around and found out that not only was she his ex, but she was his ex-fiancée who lived in another country and couldn't travel to the US because of their COVID international travel restrictions. So it seemed all too convenient that while this person was in a whole different country, that he could have been doing God knows what with anyone here, and I think I may have been that person. Last month the radio silence was getting pretty bad. I brought it up to him and he apologized, saying that he got a new, more demanding position at work. But more importantly, that his parents were visiting him soon and he was busy prepping the house. But the day that they were supposed to arrive came and I didn't hear anything from him. All the while he began acting very suspicious. He started messaging me exclusively on a messaging app and not through normal text. We also share a smart bed that tracks biometrics and he set it to not collect information. Again, I snooped around and it turned out his parents were still in their state. So he lied to me about them coming over. I also found out he blocked my number. I called him out on this over the messaging app and he insisted to me that they were here. He insisted that he wanted to talk about this later because he was sick and not feeling well. Later that night, he sent a picture of a male friend at his house, trying to prove to me that he wasn't cheating. He also told me that his situation was very complicated and that he should have dealt with it a long time ago. But in the meantime, I had to respect his privacy. A few days later, I called and he explained the situation to me. It turns out that the international travel restriction of his ex's country was recently lifted and she flew herself over and has been giving himself and his family problems ever since. I confirmed that the first part of his explanation was true, but I don't know whether she's actually harassing his family or not. I'm much more inclined to believe that her flying over was planned between both of them, as his parents are still friends with her on social media. I don't know if she's actually his ex or if they're still together. I just feel so naive and so stupid that I let myself take all this emotional abuse the last 2 months, or that I made myself gloss over things in the beginning because he seemed like such a great guy. Am I the arsehole for calling out sister's boyfriend for potentially poisoning my boyfriend? I, 25 female, volunteered to cook the Christmas dinner for my family yesterday. My parents are getting older, so I feel guilty sitting back whilst they did all the work. Also, we have the added complication of my partner, 32 male, being celiac. I'm used to cooking for both of us and making sure everything is safe and gluten-free. Me and my family are also veggie/vegan. My sister, 20 female, and her boyfriend, 21 male, have been dating a few months. He doesn't have a great relationship with his family, so we invited him to join us for the holidays. We'd not met him before this. So a couple of days before Christmas, my sister rang me, saying her boyfriend had been complaining about being forced to have a meat/gluten-free dinner. I told her he was more than welcome to bring something for himself, that I'd be happy to cook it for him, but asked if he could please not bring anything with gluten in, as it could make my partner really ill. Anyway, cut to yesterday and I cooked the duck he brought first and leave it to rest. Pretty much the whole time he was lurking over my shoulder, smirking and making comments about how it must be weird to get back on my values. How it must be weird to go back on my values. I told him that I didn't mind and that I used to cook some meat stuff for my partner before he went veggie, as long as he bought it with his own money. 10 minutes before I was about to plate up, the most stressful time, he comes back into the kitchen, says he's starving as food's taken too long, and wants to eat some of his duck. Obviously, I was a bit irritated as it was literally the worst timing, but said okay. He was about to leave the room when I saw he'd put the duck in a small baguette. I asked where he'd got it from and he said he'd brought it with him. I panicked and flew around the kitchen, cleaning up all the crumbs he had made and throwing away any food that wasn't covered. I was so stressed out and close to tears. My partner wasn't diagnosed with celiac disease until his late 20s and his digestive system is in a bad way. His doctors have said the next gluten incident could put him in the hospital, with him possibly needing to have a stoma bag for the rest of his life. We finally sit down to dinner and my family all thank me for cooking. My sister's boyfriend chimes in saying that he helped cook. Well, I completely lost it. I told everyone that not only did he not help, he risked spiking my partner by bringing gluten into the kitchen. Everyone was horrified, especially my sister, who had no idea he'd brought the bread. He refused to apologize and said he didn't realize what the big deal was, which resulted in him getting chewed out by my mum and dad. He ate, excused himself, and holed up in my sister's room for the rest of the night. I feel like I might be the arsehole for blowing up at him in front of everyone, especially since he went home this morning telling my sister he didn't feel welcome here. So Reddit, am I the arsehole?